Hello, fellow humans. Have you heard about Project 2025, that right-wing libertarian super-capitalist agenda that wants to reduce the US government to the size of a king's palace? This website is tracking the progress of Project 2025. It seems that overall, progress sits at about 34% by the time I checked. The common theme behind all these objectives is austerity, which is reducing government spending to the bare bones in the name of solvency and increasing the freedom of the capital-owning class in the name of efficiency. Austerity is a scam, the biggest con invented by capitalists, and the #1 tool of economic oppression. For these reasons, it applies the same ideology to both the state and the private sector when it talks about solvency and efficiency. This started more than 100 years ago when a group of economists advanced the propaganda that the government budget must be balanced, in the same way that the private corporation balances its budget. In other words, the state cannot run a deficit for too long because it can go bankrupt. Just like when a corporation that goes bankrupt when it does not make a profit for long enough and runs out of cash. This interpretation is completely wrong. Modern monetary theory explains how governments do not have to balance their budget to continue to exist. Governments that have a sovereign currency, such as the dollar or the Japanese yen, can issue as much currency as they want in order to pay for their expenses. The people who own capital are not more efficient than the government at anything. There's waste of money, bureaucracy on both sides. Let's see some examples of private sector efficiency. The Pennsylvania Public School Employees Retirement System lost $800 million out of the $1.4 billion, that's 56%, from real estate investments it made with asset management companies such as Morgan Stanley. Morgan Stanley is a private company. In the UK, energy network owners have made £3.9 billion excess profit from higher bills. The 2008 financial crisis of private sector subprime mortgages that caused the housing bubble in the US. Why do companies go bankrupt or lose money? Is it because of competition? Is it because somebody else came out with a much better, more efficient product? Let's make a clear distinction. Efficiency for a corporation means something different than efficiency for a government. Corporations are supposed to be efficient at making a profit. That means earning more money than they spend. Efficiency for the state means something different. The state is supposed to meet the needs of society given the resources it has. The state is its own source of money because it can create money whenever it wants. The limited resources for the state is not money, but the productive capacity of the economy. How much infrastructure, how much natural resources, how many people are available to do the work necessary to satisfy the needs of society. Austerity denies the fundamental structural design of capitalism. This design consists of at least 3 doctrines: proportionality, dispossession, and hierarchies. When it comes to these doctrines, advocates for austerity often confuse cause with effect and symptom with illness. What Clara Mattei identified in her book, The Capital Order, are the ways in which the owners of capital fought really hard to win the ideological war, to impose the capitalist method of doing business over the entire society. That meant keeping the proportional relation between number of shares and number of votes, keeping the right to dispossess common property, such as land and natural resources, to turn it into capital, and keeping the top-down hierarchies at the workplace that look like feudal pyramids of lords and barons. That is the capital order. Austerity economists deny this reality. They claim this order is the natural way of things, They fight to preserve it at all costs. They won the first ideological battle in 1922 when the Fascist Party of Mussolini took power in Italy and immediately launched austerity policies. Austerity is constructed on artificial scarcity and fabricated inequality. One fundamental accounting formula says that someone's income is always someone else's expense. This applies to both companies and the government. For national economy, this means there's always enough money to buy everything that was produced using the productive capacity available in the nation. Scarcity of housing, for example, is a matter of affordability, not always a matter of not having enough housing units. In 2021, for example, in Canada, 7.5% of available dwellings were unoccupied. Scarcity of natural resources is not the same as scarcity of affordable houses. When something is priced to sell on the market, then scarcity becomes about wealth inequality. Who has the money to buy that house? It's a race of who's wealthier. Since the capital order has created artificial pyramids of wealth, automatically this created inequality in accessing scarce products on the market, including housing. The higher the inequality, the higher the scarcity, because those with money drive up the price of many assets by buying them or investing in them. On top of these injustices, austerity thinks that the solution is to tighten the belt for everyone, in the hope that that will bring prices down to make living affordable again. As we can see from all the economic crises in the last century, this has never happened. Austerity always made the rich richer and created the conditions for fascism. Austerity is a dysfunction of democracy. The design of capitalism is not the only cause for why this is happening. Electoral democracy is also to blame. The British parliamentarian tradition was exported largely throughout the world by insisting on the idea that citizens must belong to a political party along ideological lines, then submit to being voted for by citizens for a limited term in office. This type of democracy has created terrible partisanship, hatred between voters, corrupted politicians, corrupted elections, illusions of representation, an incredible waste of money and energy. Once elected, politicians have a carte blanche to do whatever they want for 4 years or until they are kicked out of the office before that, which rarely happens. Since they have this carte blanche, they can immediately deploy austerity if that's the will of their rich sponsors. Who is actually president now, Trump or Musk? Electoral democracy will always create austerity. History is doomed to repeat itself. You have a major crisis, such as the World War, then the government resets society for the benefit of everyone until the wealthy capitalist class fights back and leads society back into fascism. To break this cycle, we must abolish electoral democracy and switch to selecting representatives by qualified lottery, also known as sortition. Fighting back against austerity would require a lot of public mobilization. At a minimum, the following would need to happen. We must win the battle of narratives. Let us be frank, people vote for fascists because they don't know any better. Here, I do not mean disrespect, but imagine if people really knew what Trump, Musk, and all billionaires talked behind closed doors between them, how they treated their sycophantic employees, how they displayed lack of empathy and psychopathy in the face of poverty, genocide, destruction, and suffering. If everyone really knew the darkest thoughts of the super rich, what really motivated them, how their personalities are exceptionally narcissistic, would people really believe these men? Would people still vote for them? Would people still believe the oligarchs who own their homes when people are left homeless because they cannot afford rent or mortgage? There's also the Stockholm Syndrome, where prisoners develop a psychological connection with their captors. Austerity has put the supporters of contemporary fascism in a Stockholm syndrome, making them believe everything their overlords tell them. This is why our stories must be much more powerful than the stories of our wealthy overlords. We must disrupt all their speeches. We must block their businesses. We must block their traveling. We must block all their moves. We must organize in pro-social collectives that act for a higher purpose. The United Auto Workers is planning for a massive simultaneous strike in 2028. The Shutdown 315 movement plans a massive strike on March 15th. Whatever form of organizing it takes, as long as people get together in a collective that aims at taking power back from the ruling class, there's a significant chance to win. Numbers are always on the side of the many, unorganized citizens. The moment citizens organize, they can shut down the entire system within days. The ruling class is barely 1% of the population. We must attack the power of the oppressors directly at the root. When we fight back, we must attack the fundamental doctrines that maintain the capital order: proportionality, dispossession, and hierarchies. The demands must include the full democratization of the economy, the expropriation of the super-rich via wealth taxes, and the end of austerity economics. Thank you for watching. We need your help to grow this channel. Only when our stories, our demands are stronger and louder than those of the ruling class, only then we will be able to win back our freedom. There is no other way. Subscribe, engage, spread the word so others can learn as well. Please support me if you can on Ko-fi or Patreon to make these videos possible. Talk to you soon. Be well. Increase the peace.
I'll give them $75,000.
Yes, Austerity. You want something lesser than that?
Yeah, kasi ko dinala.
Election dinner.
Only pop kinish up dinala.
I'm going to see you go like an embassy. Think I should so you